if we heal this old trauma from your past, especially from your childhood, then that part of you is not going to want to punish itself. It's not going to feel like it has to pay the price. It's not going to feel that it needs to kill itself in order to get attention or be loved. And if we heal this sort of mental programs of this is as good as it's going to get, or I deserve this, or I'm not good enough, then again, you created a clean slate. You turn the page in your book, and now you have a blank page, and now you can start designing your story.
Welcome to a Broaderlenspodcast. The opinions expressed on Broaderlenspodcast are those of the guest speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or Broaderlenspodcast. Maria, welcome to Broaderlenspodcast. It's an honor.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I got to meet you at the expo and chatted a bit, and you had a lot of people trying to talk to you. I stood in line, but here we are. So it's I look forward to learning.
Event.
Yeah, it is. I look forward to next year. So maybe before we get started, you can share a little bit about who you are and what you do, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Well, I like to consider myself a facilitator of designing life. I like to help people design the life that they love living. And that starts with the inside, who they are, their relationship with self, and then the relationship with the world. But my work started actually many years ago when I was about 5. When I was about 5, I started seeing angels, spirits. I started doing astral travel. I started going to other dimensions and other timelines. So I say that I came in awake. I didn't really forget. I didn't shut my gifts down. And then later I found out that I come from a lineage of curanderos, shaman healers, my mom, my grandfather, my grandmother, and then their grandmother. So it's been really interesting, to move, like I was born in Mexico, to move from Mexico to here and experience sort of not knowing anybody and not, being in your own little world. And that actually created some lack and some scarcity and some fear for my parents. And because of that, and especially because of the fear, they didn't really want anybody to know who I was. They were concerned that people would ask me to do things for them, and I wouldn't know what to do or how to do them. So my earlier years that I advised me not to really talk about it. So my work early on was with spirit. So what I would do, or what my angels and guides would help me do, is take me to somebody and work with their spirit. I would work with either retrieving parts of their spirit. I would work with awakening their spirit. I will work with freeing their spirit. Oftentimes their spirit was trapped in another timeline or another dimension, or was held by other entities, like demonic entities. So I would help free them. And at that age, obviously, I wasn't conscious about this is the work that I'm doing, but I was really guided by my divine team. Archangel Michael has always been at my side. Mother Mary, Jesus, the other archangels, and then other guides that came in that were from my ancestral path, and others that had signed up to help me during this time. And they would guide me to do what I needed to do. They would give me the resources to accomplish the task at hand. And then it was done. And it became sort of very natural for me to be in other dimensions and other worlds. And as I went on through my life, I, didn't really express it out in the world, but it really got amplified. I wouldn't say amplified because instead of out of control, when I went to college, I remember being in my dorm room and portals opening up and people coming in through the portals. I remember having all types of beings, galactic beings, demonic beings, light beings, not at the same time, but they would just come in. And it was my first year in college, so I was about 18. Came home and I told my mom, I need to do something about this because it's really getting overwhelming. I'm not sleeping because the moment I start falling asleep, there they are. So I said, I need to do something about this. And we had a friend, long-term friend, who was also a shaman. And she had actually initiated me because she knew who I was and the work that I was doing in the astral world. About 8 and 9, she started initiating me and doing sort of protective ceremonies and then helping me work with my spirit, and especially in the sleep realm. So I went back to her and she said, okay, it's about time. Let's do it. And I started with the tarot. And so from there on, it evolved to many different things: tarot, Akash, um, numerology, and my gifts were always open. So psychic mediumship, since my spirits were always showing up. And now the work that I do is freedom, empowerment, wealth, consciousness, and human potential. So this is the theme. So health, wealth, self-actualization. And when I work with people, what I like to do is, first of all, to help them be free. Because once you're free, you have free will. You can make decisions about what you want in life, what you want to create in life. You can free yourself from whatever attachments. You can reprogram your mind. So that's the work that I do, and it's the work that I love and that is very fulfilling. I still help clear entities. And I remember there was a time where I was doing just that. I was just going into dark places and helping people restore their light and vitality and life force and spirit. And I had a conversation with God, source, universe, my higher self, and I said, I love my mission. I love that I'm here to do something for humanity. But I'm ready to experience more joy in my life. I'm ready to just wake up and feel the joy in my life. So I said I will continue to do that work that I came here to do, but I want to do other things that bring me joy. And that's when I started incorporating uh, designing your life. So working on health and living your best life from that place, because we often neglect it. Actualizing, so human potential, because we want to access all of our potential, both as a human and as a divine human. And then create that relationships, like with our kids, with their parents, with their siblings, the relationships that are, have deep connection, that have great communication, that have openness. And of course, wealth legacy. I wanted to create something for my kids. So that's where, they started introducing new people to me in terms of clients to work in those areas. And then my work broadened to designing the life that you love, looking at those 3 areas of your life. And then from there, obviously looking at, well, where do we need to go? Do we need to go to the inner child? Where do we need to go to another timeline? Where do we need to go to the galactic connection? So it takes me wherever I need to go to help individuals live a fulfilled, impactful, purposeful, and wealthy life.
I wanted to ask you a quick question. I find it's pretty funny because most daughters that are coming home from college talking to their mothers are talking probably about boys, what they did, but you're talking about having a portal in your dorm where you're staying.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty. That's pretty funny, but it's pretty profound at the same time. I had a quick question. Why does it seem like in the spiritual communities, this type of discussions are a no-no, even in the spiritual communities? For some, not all spiritual communities, but sometimes people don't want to talk about the paranormal, other entities, the spirit world. They kind of like block that off in some arenas, not everyone. How does it all go together?
I think, I think it has to do with the work that you do. For instance, if you're just doing a certain type of spiritual work and you're not really working with entities, or you don't really see them, or you can't sense them, then you're not really having those conversations. For me, that's what they showed me, especially, when the dimensions were open and different entities would come in. So I was pretty aware of them from a very, very early age. And also because I was part of my mission. So in the conversations that I have, and especially with my groups, we look at that. We look at total freedom. So we want to look at if there's any interference, any attachments, anything that is sabotaging, anything that is affecting your free will and your divine will to choose. I know that we now talk about higher vibration and higher consciousness, and that's really what we want to do because everything is energy. So and my work has evolved, by the way. So meaning that the way I clear an entity now is very different than I did in the past, because just the frequencies that have come in, that the new guides have come in with me. When we work with people, it's really about raising their vibration. And I think that's where we want to be. We don't want to let people, or we don't want to facilitate people staying in that darkness. So we talk about higher consciousness, we talk about higher vibration, we talk about frequency. And that's part of the shift actually that I also created. Instead of talking about, let's see what's there, yeah, let's acknowledge and embrace, and then with love and kindness, move into your power and release that. But let's look at what can I create from here. So I'm moving from all the things that were in the way to all the things that now they can create. So creation is an expanded energy. I am in creation, I am creating, I am designing, I am co-creating, I am manifesting. That's a very high energy versus, I have these attachments, or I have I have to clear these entities. And I do try to encourage people, especially the people that come to see me, focus on creating. Don't focus on what you think is wrong with you, or what you think is in your field, or what you think is attached to you. Focus on what can I create, because that's going to raise your vibration. And the more you raise your vibration, the less things get attached to you, or the less things can influence you.
I appreciate that. I come from the 12-step community. I got sober in 2009. And somewhere during that process, I stopped wanting to call myself an alcoholic because it's a custom in meetings, because I felt like that was not healthy for me. Maybe I'm grateful to be here. I'm a grateful member of blah, blah, blah. But to say I'm an alcoholic, I felt that was unhealthy, yet people were upset or even questioning, why are you trying to be different? Why don't you just say you're an alcoholic? Because that doesn't seem right with me. It's kind of
Right.
similar
It's
to
an
what you're saying.
identity.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big thing that we emphasize. It's, where you are now, it's an identity. It's something that you're accepted that you are. So to shift and raise your vibration to something higher or someone higher, then you get to change that identity. So I'm an alcoholic to I am sober, and I am sovereign, and I am free, and I am the authority of my life. So it changes the vibration. The same thing when I work with people that had some trauma in their life, and they say I've survived, or they had an illness or disease. Well, let's look at the power. So I ask them, let's look at the power, or let's look at the energy or the effect when you say I am a survivor versus I am a creator, or I am
Yeah.
free of that, or I am responsible. So it does change the vibration that you're in, and it moves you and amplifies you. And especially because the mind works in a way that whatever you give it, it makes true. So if you say I am a survivor, then you're always going to be a survivor. If I am this, then there's always going to be something sort of that brings you back, links you back to what that is. But if you release that identity completely, like lack, scarcity, or failure, all of that, then you're allowing more space for you to bring something else in that is much more powerful. And the more you bring it in, the more you're pulled from that previous identity, from that previous energy, from that previous frequency into a higher one. And then it creates, again, this amplification and expansion.
Thank you. I really appreciate your answer. You commenting on that, because yeah, you're confirming some stuff for me. So thank you. I wanted to rewind it and go back to entity attachments, because I find that fascinating. I was talking about the 12-step community. I used to be an alcoholic. Carl Jung said something in Latin one time, and he said, "Spiritus contra spiritum," means spirit against spirits. You brought up attachments, and do you see? You can literally see these attachments on people, and if so, do you see them a lot with people that are suffering with addiction and unresolved trauma? How does that look?
Yeah. And that's a really good question, because that's where I find them the most, with somebody that has experiencing trauma, somebody that is experiencing like a mental illness, somebody that's experiencing an illness, like a diagnosis, somebody who, and trauma is across the board: mental, physical, emotional, energetic, and sexual. So any of those areas, because what happens when we experience trauma, so one of the things that I notice is that the spirit is pushed out of the body. It's if you can remember Doctor Strange when he gets pushed out of his body, right? So that's kind of what happens with trauma is when you experience trauma, your spirit gets pushed out. Although your spirit is used to actually being out of your body, but this time it was pushed out. A lot of times your spirit has a difficult time coming back to your body. One, if you don't have a relationship with yourself, so self-love, self-acceptance. One, if you don't have your own will, like if you're being manipulated, if others are manipulating you. Two, if your vitality, if your life force, or three, your vitality life force is weakened. It has a hard time coming back. So because the spirit is not in the body or around the body, there's sort of no protection. And other things can come in and try to occupy the body. So you'll have discarnate spirits, disembodied spirits, so sort of other spirits that are looking for a body. You'll have demonic attachments. And especially after the trauma, if you experience a low emotion like, why did that happen to me? Or I don't feel good enough anymore. Like if there's a blow to your ego, like not good enough, feeling shame, feeling anger or resentment or sadness or grief, any of those lower emotions, or like an incubation for entities, they create that space. So I find that when somebody's going through that, there's a lot of that. And actually, once that's clear, you see a big shift in the person. You see a big shift in their energy field, in the way they're thinking, the way they're processing information, because they have more awareness, because they have the connection to their spirit. They have they're more in their body, so they feel more present in their environment, and so also they start activating their will to choose what they want, their will to make good decisions, their will to say no to things that are not in their highest good. So I do see a big difference when we work with people that have had any type of trauma or addictions or mental health.
Thank you. Yeah, I still have that in me a little bit that you're not good enough. And I know that stems from my childhood, even probably beyond that. But I still have that still, which
You
is,
want,
oh, go ahead.
go ahead. Yes, no, please go ahead.
No, which is pretty interesting because I could feel it once in a while crop up. How do you completely
Mm.
get rid of that?
Yeah, good question. So I want to answer that question, but I want to complete the question that you asked me earlier about how I see them. So when somebody presents themselves, it's like a movie, it's like a movie, and I see the individual, and then that individual has sort of different scenes in the movie. And the scenes begin to unfold, and a lot of the scenes are like what happened, like the trauma that happened, or the feelings that they're having, or the thoughts that they're running. And I see the image, either it looks like a dark shadow, or I can see like the full image of the entity. Sometimes, again, it could be anything. Um, and if it's a dark one, it looks like a demonic being. It hides behind either the feelings, the emotions, or it hides behind the identity of the individual. So when I start working with the thoughts that the person's having, like for instance, I'm not good enough, we start working with that and we start clearing them, and we start going back to the source. So that's how I work with people, to go back to the source. The not good enough is something that we adopted. It's something that you decided to believe, right? So if we start clearing and deleting and creating, and we come back to the source and we heal what created that separation, often that separation is childhood trauma or trauma from other lifetimes. So if we heal that separation from you and source, or you and your higher self, or you and you, then those thoughts are not as strong. They may still be there, but you can discern them, and you can say, okay, yeah, I see how I normally go in this direction. Now I'm coming back to me. I'm coming back to, I am good enough in this moment, or I am enough in this moment, or I love myself in this moment. So forgiveness, self-belief, self-acceptance, self-trust, worthiness, deservingness, owning your value, loving kindness, compassion. All of that are pillars of that shift that we're talking about. And, most of us have had trauma in our life, any variation or some combination of it. And we've separated from that part of ourselves, which is the true divine source, which is our higher self, which is source, which is God, which is universe. And then we adopted shame and blame, and I have to prove myself, and I have to make sure that others accept me, or that I live to somebody else's standard. But when we change and we start living for ourselves, and we start doing what we love, and we start having that relationship with God, universe, and ourselves, then the rest of the world, we see it as it is, meaning that we see the pain that other people are at, and we see that they're acting from the pain, or we see that they're acting from other things, and it doesn't affect us as much. So we sort of create healthy boundaries around us when we do that, when we come back to our true source, God, universe, and also when we have our relationship with spirit, when we bring our spirit back into our body, And the relationship with their spirit is self-love, is self-acceptance, is self-belief, is believing that we're divine creation, and that we're here for something really amazing, whether it's being happiness, or being a voice, or being a contribution to others, or being a leader, or being a facilitator, or being a supporter, or being an advocate. But when we start believing that as our new truth, then the old truth loses power, and it doesn't have, the grasp. And then it gets to the point where it doesn't really have anything. And again, coming back to who am I, more than this body, more than this mind, I am source. I am the embodiment of source. I am the embodiment of creation itself. I am the individuation of that, and that I am. And then when we hold that space in our heart, if we just hold that space for a moment of who I am in that moment, and we allow our heart to be filled, and then we feel our heart filled, and then we allow our mind to be filled, and we also focus on the light in the center of our head, then we know that when we know who we are. And then when we come back to this place again and again, the light in the center of our head, which is us as the authority, us as creator beings. And then we hold love in our heart, and we keep holding it, and we keep holding it, and we keep holding it. Then it becomes inevitable. Then you are free. Then you are more than enough, good enough. You're amazing. You're magnificent.
Thank you. So that voice. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I saw the shift in you, the little smile, and the energy clear.
Thank you. Yeah, so like that voice in the head, it still can play out a little bit, right? You might still hear the voice, I'm not good enough, but the more aware you are, the less power you give it. Is that how it works?
Yes.
And the more you continue to talk to that inner child, you're free, you're safe, you're powerful, you're lovable, you're divine. Instead of like doing the opposite, right?
Yes. So when you hear that voice, so it's the same thing with fear, right? Fear, and it's part of that voice. I always say that when you hear something that is not what you truly want to hear, or especially if you're doing something big, you're contributing to the world, you have a big project in front of you, you decided to quantum leap into the next version of you, everything in between where you are and where you want to be is going to come up. So all of those layers, so all the pain that is unresolved, all the thoughts, the mental models, the mental programs, the paradigms that are still kind of lingering that you haven't completed are going to come up. But it's really an opportunity. It's really an opportunity. The fears. So the fear of, what if you fail? What if you're rejected? What if you're humiliated? What if you're shamed? What if, this doesn't work? So all of that is really an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to first look at those parts of you that are still afraid, and those parts of you that are still hurt, and say, I love you. I love you. Because that's what your body, your mind, your inner child is trying to communicate with you. Your inner child is saying, that feels really overwhelming for me right now. I wouldn't even know what to do with it. And I'm afraid that I may fail. And you say, that's okay. That's okay. You invite the part of you to walk the journey with you. And you say, I'll take care of it. All I want is for you to be here with me. So you're bringing the inner child in, and you're creating a safe space. You're creating acceptance. You're creating a space of love. You're also releasing the inner child from the burden of creating. A lot of times we create from the inner child, and things don't work out because the inner child is not as knowledgeable as the adult, right? Or it doesn't have all the resources that we do as the adult. So we want to recognize, where is this coming from? Is it coming from the inner child? Is it coming from an old part of me that feels self-anger or self-hatred or self-rejection? And you want to fill that space with love. It's like having little children, right? And you notice when they're not happy and you're like, come here, let me, what can I do for you? Let's have this conversation. And you talk to them and you hear in that moment, oh, I couldn't do this. Don't worry about it. Try again. You'll be fine. It's practice. And you talk to them. You talk to your children, or to your nieces and to your nephews or people that you love around you. And you say, it's okay. It's going to be fine. You're going to be okay. Just keep trying. I love you. Because really that's what we seek. Love. We seek love. We seek acceptance. We seek connection. We seek belonging. And if you can offer that to all those parts of you, then all those parts of you begin to integrate, begin to come home, begin to feel safe, begin to feel accepted, begin to feel empowered and resourceful, and then begin to tap into joy, into wonder, into happiness. So that's the process.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to go back to trauma. I know some people don't like that word. Some people say it's a little too trendy, but I like to try to understand, not to stay in victim mode or anything. But trauma, you hear a lot of doctors like Gabor Mate, and I talked to Debbie about this a little bit. They talk about trauma and they had connected with all kinds of new diseases that are popping up in people, along with, addiction. The underlying cause is unresolved trauma. But they don't talk about past life trauma or ancestral trauma, which is even at a deeper level. And I would love for you to touch on that. What does ancestral trauma or past life trauma look like? And how do we heal from that, if you don't mind?
Yeah, absolutely. So the ancestral trauma, it's your ancestral lineage, right? So let's say that your family, and so this is just an example. Let's say that your family were Native American and they had their land, they were living their life, they had their tribe, and then settlers came in, took over the land. They were dislocated. Some of them were killed. Some of them died from disease or starvation. So now there's that trauma. So we're looking at it as starvation. We're looking at it as even torture. We're looking at dislocation. So not having a place to belong. So we look at what that event created for that person, and then how that event sort of plays out in the different generations, and how is that playing out here. And so I start with the individual. I look at the individual, and then we go back the generations, however many generations, up to 17, and sometimes actually we go into other generations, even past that. But usually we go back 17. And we look at what was the trauma. And oftentimes we know, right? We know that, your grandparents died of some disease. Your grandparents, struggled. Your grandparents either were, had a specific type of job or role. And we know what that was, whether it was successful or not successful. And we know what that did to their kids. And we know that what their kids, what they carried. So we look at what you're carrying, the person I'm working with. What is it? What is that pain and your inability to self-actualize? So either inability to self-actualize wealth and prosperity, or your inability to self-actualize health and vitality, or your inability to self-actualize love and relationships, or your inability to self-actualize yourself. And then we go back and we start opening. Well, we go back down to 17 generations. And then we also look at the timelines. The timelines or lifetimes, they kind of open up like a fan. And it's like a file that starts giving me information of not necessarily what happened, but the specific event connected to like what the person took from that. So I want to go back and explain a little bit. See, we want to go back. So this is part of the healing. So where I take everybody is to that place that we were talking about earlier. We are creation, right? We are individuation of source. We're not victims to anything. We're not victims to what happens in our environment. we're all beings of light. And especially the people that we're surrounded, like your parents, your children, your friends, your siblings, we're part of the same soul family. People that you interact that there's a significant relationship or a significant challenge. We decided before coming in to this life, I decided to enroll the people around me and say, okay, in this lifetime, I want you to teach me how to love myself. In this lifetime, I want you to teach me or help me learn how to love myself, how to accept myself, how to know that I'm good enough. And they said, okay, but they didn't tell me how they would do it. They just agreed, right? So we have an agreement or a contract. Now, when they come into this life, and because times evolve, in this life, they show me by either creating rejection or rejecting me, or by, let's say in a relationship, by cheating on me. So they show me in different ways. And my role is not to be in pain about that, is not to be the victim of that, is to look at and say, what do I need to learn about myself? Because this is about me. That person is just showing me what I'm here to learn, what I'm here to do in this world, what I'm here to ascend to. So then I get to look at myself and look at, first of all, how am I relating to this event? Am I relating in lack, in scarcity, in unworthiness? So those are the things I get to heal. And the thing that I get to bring in is that self-love. So they're creating something in me so that I can evolve. And then I get to attain what I said I wanted to attain, which is either forgiveness or love or self-acceptance. So when I work with people or groups of people and we're looking at ancestral healing, we look at those major areas, lack, scarcity, or we look at something specific. When somebody says, I'm not able to hold money or create money. So we look at the poverty consciousness, we look at the poverty contracts, we look at if in their family they lost money, or money was taken, or land was taken, or something of value that created that victimization. And then we go back and heal that victimization. And it's through the awakening that nothing's really lost, right? It's the belief that I am a victim to this. It's the belief that I am powerless to this. It's the belief that I don't have the power to resolve this. And we can move them back into what they came here to learn, which is I am wealth consciousness. And I've seen this many times where money starts coming back to them in different ways. And then if we look at somebody that has that they're saying, I'm not able to express my gifts. I'm not able to unlock my third eye. So we look at their past lives and we look at any contracts that they have or anything that came through their lineage. Like if there was another healer in their family, there was another shaman in their family, there was another teacher in their family that experienced torture, experienced persecution, experienced trauma, and they decided to shut their gifts down, or decided that that was too unsafe to do, and they passed it on to everybody else. Or if we look at the timelines, we're looking for that similar, but also torture or anything else where at that person, because we make those decisions, where the person decided, I can't do this, it's not unsafe, or this brings me lots of pain, or when I see too much and it's too painful. So different things like that, different things that we decide, because we are creating everything. We're co-creating with the divine. We're co-creating with everybody around us. And when we can identify what we decided and the design around that and the architect around that, then we can change that. We can heal that part of ourselves, and then we can start choosing. So it's a reset. It's either a collapse in the timelines, or it's a reset, or it's a completion of contracts, it's completion of agreements. And of course, it's the healing, the higher healing that we bring into the ancestral lineage, as well as to the different lifetimes. And it's also a reintegration of the soul fragments that are sort of scattered, that they're in that sort of cycle of trauma. And as we integrate, then we're more whole here. We're more self-actualized. We're more present in this lifetime. We're accessing more of our potential. We're accessing more of our divine genius.
Thank you. So you're saying that our life is our guru and everyone's a mere reflection of self to help us
Yeah,
evolve.
We are, we decided all the lifetimes we've decided to take a journey. It's like the skit or is the chapter in our book, right? That's the chapter we're in. And everybody there is not really there to take us out, to suppress us or to punish us. But when we show up a certain way and we have certain agreements with them and we decided that we're going to learn certain things, then it looks that way. But when we remember, oh yeah, that's right, I'm a creator. That's right, I'm a creator being. I'm source within me. And I don't have to accept this anymore. I don't want to accept this anymore. Now I want to change this. I want to change the way the world sees me. I want to change the way I show up in the world. I want to change what the world's reflecting back at me. And that starts here, because the world is just reflecting back how we're showing up.
So, like soul contracts, do we choose our family we're gonna have this experience with? And I'm asking that because, like, I have a family right now, and I love my family to death, and I feel like I'm in the middle, but um, this group ain't talking to this group. It's kind of like a toxic and a lot of collective trauma within my family, but I feel like
Mhm.
I'm in the center of it, just trying to be um, an example and there for everyone. But was that all pre-planned, do you believe?
Well, I don't want to say that it was pre-planned in this way, but it was agreed upon that you were going to come together. Remember, I
Hmm.
said they don't tell you how they're going to do it because we come into different environments, different different, what was back in 1800s is different what it is right now. So it's you come in and you express what you say you were going to express, but it's really to learn. So we choose our parents. Or siblings choose, so if you have siblings, they also choose your parents. So now you're together in the family. Families, I think we all have that, like there's healing to be done in our family. And especially if you're the one that's doing the healing, you can see more of what's going on. And sometimes they can't see it because they're not doing the work that you're doing. With family, you want to see them, we're really with everybody. You want to see them where they are. Like everybody is a divine being. So you want to see everybody in their magnificence, but we also want to recognize where they are, meaning that if they have a limitation and they're unwilling to change it or they're unwilling to see it, then you get to accept them and create that space for them to, at one point, maybe hopefully soon, they have a greater awareness of where they are. And a lot of times that happens by you, right? You being that frequency, you being that beacon, you being, because they see your evolution, they see that your joy, they see how you're changing, they see that you're becoming. And then when you're around them, there's a greater level of peace, or there's a greater level of love and compassion. There's a greater level of understanding. And that is sort of an invitation for everybody else to step into that frequency. So you'll find that as you're evolving, other people may start being more interested in evolving and changing. And, it's like the collective, right? If one person believes a certain way, and then now another person believes a certain way, and they're all sort of carrying the same belief systems, now you have this collective energy, which could be very powerful, or it could be debilitating depending on what the belief systems are. So it's the same thing with family. You're holding that space, you're that beacon. Eventually, you're going to have somebody else join you. And now there's two, and then there will be three, and then there'll be four. And so you're creating that space. You're the way shower. You're the pioneer in your family. And you also agree to be that person, especially if you feel like I'm in the middle and I can kind of see where everything's going on. You agree to be that person for everybody. So also the more you heal yourself, you're healing the generations forward and back. And that includes, your parents, your grandparents, and your siblings, because it's the lineage, it's the bloodline.
Hate to sound like I'm asking similar questions, but I want to emphasize this because I love your perspective in your insights on this. What does it look like when someone's disconnected with self? And what does it look like when someone is really connected to their true self and their own inner power?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So when somebody's disconnected from themselves, their physical symptoms, but in their emotional symptoms. Some of the emotional symptoms is that they're running at lower vibration, like they're either getting too frustrated too quickly, they get impatient, they even run anger or rage. They may be judgmental, often very judgmental, either of themselves or others. And they don't feel grounded. They feel like their energy is just in a constant movement. So that's the disconnection. When they're connected to themselves, and especially spirit being in their body, there's a calm, there's a serenity, there's a harmony, there's peace. And you feel them being grounded. You feel them like being very present. You don't notice like the distraction or the confusion or the fog. And sometimes you can even see it, like they don't necessarily look at you. They'll look down. They'll look like their mind is somewhere else. That's when they're disconnected. That's when their spirit is not fully in their body.
Appreciate that. Free will. I want to go back to free will because I love what you have to say on free will. What is it, free will, and what does it look like when our free will is hijacked?
Okay. So free will is really your ability to choose. Your ability to choose. Like we are creation, right? But that's what we have. That's what makes us different. We have the ability to choose either to incarnate, not incarnate, to play a certain role and not play a certain role. We have the ability to choose, I want to do that, I don't want to do that. We have the ability to decide, who we're going to be in the world. That's not dictated. So that's free will. You get to decide. That is your divine power. You get to decide that you're going to be, an influencer, a great way shower in the world, that you're going to create powerful impact in the world, that you get to decide that you can embody your greatness. You get to decide that you're going to create a space of compassion and loving kindness. You get to decide that you're powerful. So all of that is free will. You're making decisions. You're making clear. So I want to say this, though. I want to back it up a little bit. We're constantly making decisions, right? We're even by not making a decision, we're making a decision. But it's when you're doing it fully present and clear of the highest good for all in yourself. So it's not just for you, it's for all. When we're making decisions that are for the highest good. And I say that because, somebody can make a decision to hurt somebody else, right? That's still free will, and there's a consequence to that, right? There's a consequence to that. So free will is you having the ability to choose, knowing that there's the consequences, and the consequences are based on, what kind of decisions are you making? When it's hijacked, when your free will is hijacked, oftentimes is when there are entity attachments. Oftentimes is when your spirit is not in your body. Oftentimes are when there's a walk-in in your body or a demonic in your demonic energy in your body, and you are not yourself. You're not living up to your potential. You're not making good choices that are in the highest good for you or humanity. That this is all kinds of choices, like what you're eating, what you're taking in, what types of things that you do. And also what that looks like is illness. It looks like illness, either mental illness, depression, anxiety. It may even look like post-traumatic stress. Or social anxiety. I mean, it looks like the world is against you. It looks like you can't exist in the world. It looks like the world is not safe for you to be in. Or it looks like it's always somebody else's fault that something is happening to you. And again, so it's a whole variation of, so you're still making decisions, but they're not decisions that are getting you closer to who you're meant to be, who you want to be in the world. They're not decisions that are bringing you more joy, more happiness, more prosperity. They're not decisions that are opening up new possibilities, new opportunities. They're decisions that keep where you feel lost. You're spiraling out of control.
I know Joe Dispenza, and I love Joe Dispenza. He talks about in today's world, with all the information going around, ignorance is a choice. But I kind of disagree a little bit, because when you're stuck in a lot of the trauma or you have all these attachments, it's hard to make a choice. You lose the ability of choice when you have this addiction going on. Would
Mhm.
you agree?
I agree what you said about his statement. We still have choice. Remember, I said, even if you're not making a decision, that's still choosing. So you're choosing not to make the decision. So we
Mm.
still have that. But it's when we're not doing what's in our highest good. So when we're not doing, like when we don't have the motivation, we don't have the commitment, we don't have the drive, we don't have the conviction to do what's in our highest good or good for humanity or good for our kids, when something else is bigger than us, because that something else has a hold on us. It's either deceiving or it's manipulating or it's taking their life force away. So that's when it feels like it's not really up to you, right? It's, because we still have the ability to choose whether it's making a little choice forward. But it does take coming back to that awareness. If you've spiraled really out, it does take either either somebody helping you out or you just saying enough is enough, and then just making those little steps and those little increments to come back to yourself.
When I used to drink, I used to black out a lot. Do you think they hijacked me? Because I wouldn't remember a thing at times when I would black out. Was that an opportunity for some of these entities to come in and
When you're not conscious, that's
yeah.
an opportunity for them to come in. When you are, again, when you're not conscious, or when you're not able to make a decision that it's in your highest good, and that could be drugs or alcohol or something else, or like trauma that happened, that's an opportunity for something else to attach itself to you, for something else. Because what they do is they feed on that lower energy, and it sort of becomes an anchor. It it's like an infestation, like an infection that keeps spreading, because they're locked into that, either you not being there, or into that old trauma, or into you not being coherent or aware or conscious of yourself. So they lock into that, they hook into that, and they try to hold on to you. So the way they try to hold on to you is bringing you back to that, bringing you back to that, so that you lose your power or your ability to make that decision or your ability to be in your full awareness.
If you look at the news, it's a lot of lower vibration frequencies going on. A lot of fear, hate, discrimination, us against them, survival mode mentality. And then you go to church and sometimes they focus on being a sinner and the negative aspects, even though they share a lot of beautiful parts as well. And then even in 12-step communities, you're on survival mode. It's like, it seems like, I don't know if it's just me or the outer worlds. There's a lot of negative stuff being fed to us for some reason. Do you believe it could be the entities or these elites working with these entities?
I would say that it's a little bit of everything. It's fear. It's fear based.
Mm.
Uh, Fear cells, fear cells, trauma cells, crime cells. For the news, right? It's for the ratings. But that's one thing. It has to be something splash. It has to create shock. It has to create shock in order for somebody to be interested in wanting to watch that. Um, and there is a lot of negativity, and they do spin it that way for, their own reasons. I think what's important, and this would be amazing if we could all like kind of step into the awareness to either not pay so much attention to the news, or watch the news and recognize that they've already put their spin onto it, and try to
Mm.
see the truth of what is being told, so that we're not influenced, because it does. Like, you start feeling sad, you start feeling angry, you start feeling fearful, you start judging, it creates more of that separation, or creates, again, it keeps you in that space where you're not yourself and you're not in your power. So if we can recognize, okay, this is the way the media works, and I can see what it does to humanity. So I'm not going to be part of that. I'm not going to play into that. I'm going to watch, but I'm going to discern. I'm going to discern the truth about this, and then not get sucked into the consciousness of that.
How would you define the ego?
Yeah. So when I look at the body, I look at the body as a multidimensional being. The body is spirit, soul, energy, mental, so mental body, emotional body, inner child, ego, and victim. So I see them, but and of course we have the higher bodies as well, the light bodies, the crystalline body. We have the higher bodies, And I like to look at them as a multidimensional, or individuals as multidimensionals, because we are, right? We're multidimensional beings. The ego is a part of you that you created. Like we created the ego. We created the ego to protect us. And that's all it does, right? That's its role, to protect you. So we can't kill it because it's a part of us. We can't get rid of it because it's a part of us, but we can integrate it. So it's like integrating your happy family. So we want to empower the victim so that she doesn't feel, or he doesn't feel victim anymore. They feel resourceful and powerful. We want to heal the inner child so the inner child feels safe, loved, and has connection in it, has a place to belong. We want to heal the ego that is always defensive. Like, no, it's always like them and us, or judging everything else and kind of trying to keep you from experiencing things, either especially pain. So we want to heal that part of ourselves because it did serve us at one point, right? But now as we're evolving, and now as we're stepping into our higher frequencies and higher states of consciousness, we can see the ego with love and compassion as a part of us that served us really well, because that's what we needed at the time. That's why we created it. We created it from where we were. So now that we're higher evolved, we can invite either the ego to step in and now be part of the family, or we can give it a different role because it's part of who we are.
Thank you. I'm going to pull something out from your website and let you touch on that. Divine genetics and cellular reactivation. And you talk about 4 points, that 4 benefits in your website. And the first one was genetic empowerment. Maybe you can touch on that for us briefly.
Yeah. So when we look at who we are, right, we have ultimate potential. We are not limited by any means. The limitations that we've experienced are limitations that either we accepted from our family, from society, or even from ourselves. But when we look at our, genetic empowerment, first of all, we're tapping into the truth of who we are, the DNA of who we are, which is angelic, which is source, which is God, which is universe, which is galactic. And when we can tap into that, and we can start activating that part of ourselves, we're activating our genius, we're activating our healing protocols, we're activating higher frequencies within ourselves. And that is not just healing ourselves, but because it's our DNA, we're healing our children, and we're healing, again, this is part of the ancestral healing that I do as well. We're healing their generations, but we're amplifying our potential as well, because now we're tapping into more of the information that's available to us in our DNA, in our genes. And we're also deciding what we're going to accept and not accept. So if we came in with some disease, or if there was some marker in our DNA, we can decide, no, thank you. We can decide to repair that. We can decide that that's no longer what we're accepting moving forward. So the empowerment about activating that is that you can truly change and you can truly heal who you are. You can amplify your life by accessing the data and accessing the codes and accessing the frequencies that are available in your DNA and available to you.
Thank you. Cellular rejuvenation.
Yes, cellular rejuvenation. So, I work on that level in the energetic aspect of it, as well as in the nutrition and movement. So, cellular regeneration is the restoration of the light of your cell. It's also cleansing the cell. So one of the practices that I do is I pull up the master cell or the mirror cell or one of the stem cells, and I look at what is sort of the gunk, what is the debris that is being held in the cell. And a lot of times that's composed of everything that we've been talking about. Some of the belief systems, some of the emotions, some of the trauma, some of the ancestral trauma. And we begin to clear it out. We've been to release from the cell. And the cell may show up in different ways, just like the DNA. Like the DNA has, double helix. Sometimes it shows up broken. Sometimes it shows up in different colors. Sometimes it shows up with different parts are black. So it indicates where we need to go. The same thing with the cell. It's, either the mitochondria or just the cell or the cell wall. And it'll show whether it has toxicity and what toxicity that is, whether it's environmental toxicity or emotional toxicity or other type of chemicals or viral. And then we clear it we clear it. And then once we clear it, especially the master cell, then we can reintegrate it back into your body. And then the master cell, it's the God cell. It indicates to all the other cells what they need to do to mirror it. So they start coming back, they start mirroring, and they start healing, they start modeling it, and then that restores the cell. And I like to do that especially when somebody has had a significant physical trauma, or an illness, like something like cancer or a disease in any of the organs. I like to heal. I like to start there or go there because we're physically also looking at the body, and we're energetically and physically and emotionally. And once we can heal all of that, then what happens to the individual is that they feel more vitality, they feel more energized. A lot of times their results have completely changed. I remember a client that had prostate cancer and it was spreading. And so in one of our sessions, we actually contained it. He had a contract. We couldn't remove it. It was a contract that he came in with prostate cancer. And I think it was one of his family members. So what we could do, I asked, okay, so what else? What can we do? How can we help him? And what was suggested is that we encapsulate it. So we actually pulled it in and we encapsulated so that it wouldn't spread anymore. And later, his wife told me that he went back and he went back and he went back, and they said it's no longer spreading. It's actually contained into the prostate. And I've had a couple actually situations like that with cancer, where we either contain it or something viral where we release the viral strand. And especially when COVID, energetically, we would pull the COVID virus, or when they had the vaccines, we would clear the parts that were not healthy for the body, and we would just leave the part that was actually meant to work, and we would amplify that so it was easy for the body to accept, wouldn't create so many side effects, and would accelerate the healing. And then we would release all the other debris that wasn't valuable to the body and wouldn't support the body. So that's how we do cellular rejuvenation. And of course, I do have a protocol of diet and supplements that I do when we're talking with the physical body and working with somebody on functional nutrition.
A lot of people that you see that sticker around or T-shirts, F cancer. And I totally understand what they mean by that, but a lot of people don't realize if you don't do inner work and get rid of these trapped emotions and these negative belief systems, that's what's creating it. Would you agree?
There's a lot of that involved in cancer. There's genetics, something we accepted from our parents. There's the environment, something that we're taking in from the environment. And of course, the emotions that are stuck in the body and in the field, what we're eating as well, that is creating that. So I like to approach it from the different directions, from the pain and trauma, from the emotional state, from the mental state, from the environment, from the nutrition, from any heartache that is there, any inner childhood heartache that is there. So I like to approach it from different directions and empower people with themselves, right? Because they're now understanding themselves and the belief systems that they had and what they accepted in life and what they ate that created this, knowing that it's reversible, knowing that we can, if we release these things from your body, if we detoxify either neurotoxicity or cellular detoxification, then there's going to be a different environment in your system. If we take these supplements, there's going to be a different support, higher energy, higher frequency in your system. If we heal this old trauma from your past, especially from your childhood, then that part of you is not going to want to punish itself. It's not going to feel like it has to pay the price. It's not going to feel that it needs to kill itself in order to get attention or be loved. And if we heal this sort of mental programs of this is as good as it's going to get, or I deserve this, or I'm not good enough, then again, you created a clean slate. You turn the page in your book, and now you have a blank page, and now you can start designing your story.
Intuition enhancement.
Yeah, it's really about, first of all, unlocking your third eye. So unlocking your third eye, unlocking so your clairvoyance, your clairaudience, and your clairsentient, and your claircognizant. So it's your ability to really know, your ability to see, trust, understand, feel, all of that. And then also the relationship with yourself is trusting yourself that often lacks or affects your intuition. So a lot of times we do have those gifts, but if we don't trust ourselves because we're judging ourselves from the past, then we're not trusting our intuition. We're looking for the information outside. We're asking for other people's opinion, but we're not really feeling into what is in my highest good, or, what is good for me? What am I being called to do now? How am I being called to serve, or what is this opportunity for me now? So it's really about that, again, that relationship with self again, and coming back to trusting and believing in yourself, regardless of what happened in the past, regardless of what you went through, obviously healing those parts, but not basing who you are now and what you can do in your abilities on what happened in the past, but really unlocking your true potential, unlocking your ability to discern, unlocking your ability to sense, unlocking your ability to download information, unlocking your ability to go beyond the five senses.
And I'm going to have you touch on the last two, emotional resilience and spiritual alignment.
Yes, emotional resilience is we go through different things in life. And if everything makes us feel sad, or if everything makes us feel depressed, or everything makes us feel pity, or takes us to the victim energy, then we're not fully expressing ourselves, and we're letting life create for us. So things in life, events in life create for us. And emotional resilience is your ability to come back to that center. Is your ability to come back to that source. Is your ability to come back to balance. Is the ability to come back to you. So it doesn't matter what happens in your life. You feel, so you have the resource within you that regardless how big it is, and even if you don't have the answer in the moment, that the answer is going to come to you. You feel like, okay, this is overwhelming. Feels really heavy, very, very, just bigger than me. I'm just going to take a breath and then allow the first step to show up, allow the first direction to show up. So it's managing your emotions. It's managing what's in front of you. It's trusting yourself and then looking into yourself for the next step forward, trusting the divine within you. And also allowing yourself to feel what you feel, because sometimes all of a sudden we feel angry because something happened. So allowing yourself to feel it, but not get caught up in it, not get caught up in anger, in fear, in hatred, in resentment or regret, or shame or blame. Is your ability to bounce back from whatever is happening around you, discern, come back to self, see where you are, feel the resources within you, be able to walk forward one step at a time.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. And my last question is, what's your conception of God, or your understanding of what people call God or source?
Well, for me, I mean, I've always had a relationship with God, and I also call him source. I also call him the divine. I also call him universe. So for me, it's always been a light force, a presence, a support. It's a space where I feel full. I feel connection. I feel belonging. It's a space where I feel like everything is possible. And I feel like I feel that partnership when somebody else is working with me and alongside me and on my behalf. So for me, source is creation. It's who I am. I'm the individuation of God and source and universe. And I am also, the light of source, the God spark. So for me, again, I have that's my relationship, and I've had that since I was little. And I feel like I feel like I made the decision to have a relationship with God when I was little because of the things that I was seeing. I was seeing a lot of demons and I was seeing a lot of uh, types of monsters and when I was 4 or 5 and 6. So for me, it was really important to manage that fear and manage what I was seeing in front of you. And I feel like I was guided. I don't know if I decided, oh, God is the answer. I feel like I was guided, because I had guides around me and I felt their support and I felt their love and I felt their presence and I felt their connection and I felt that space of wholeness within me and I felt that space of home. Um, so that's how my relationship with higher power developed. And I talk to Source, God every day. Every day, as soon as my eyes open, I feel into my heart and, you know, I ask for amazing things like, how can I serve in a bigger way? How can I be the best version of myself? How can I embody my goddess energy? How can I embody your wisdom? Or who can I serve today? Bring me whoever I'm meant to serve today. So I have a conversation and it's a dialogue because I hear uh, God and I hear my higher self and I hear, my angels talking to me. So it's a beautiful conversation that I have every day and it doesn't take long. It's like it's sort of for me now automatic. I wake up and the first thing is like, "Hi God," and we start that conversation. And then I wake up and I'm already grounded, or I get out of bed and I'm already grounded. I'm already ready to go because I've already had the conversation. I've already asked for what I wanted. I already asked to embody the frequencies, the qualities, the characteristics to serve and create an impact in the world, as well as create for myself. Um, so it's very joyful, that this relationship and the knowing of God. And through many meditations I've experienced and I've seen images of what, we all have our image of of God, what God is and what source is and what universe is. Sometimes it's just a light. Sometimes it's a silhouette. Sometimes it may look like a face. And so I've had many instances when I've experienced, the presence and even, being in the presence of God. In Goddess, mother, so father, mother. So that's, I hope that helps. That's my relationship, my interpretation.
No, I
Yeah.
love it, and that's the first thing I do too when I wake up. I pray and I meditate. I get grounded with self, and it's such a beautiful thing when you. I do. It's like second nature now. I don't even have to think about it. I've done it so many times. That's just my body can take me to a meditation stance. I mean, a pose, or in prayer, better than my conscious mind at times. It's
Oh,
just because it's
good.
automatic.
Beautiful.
So yeah, that's pretty
Beautiful.
cool. Do you believe we all have spirit guides?
I believe we do. I believe some of us are really meant to work with them and see them and interact with them. And I believe some of us, are here for something else, but we still have them and they walk with us. And oftentimes, especially when we're dealing with something challenging or we have a big project, they'll show up. And again, we may or we may not see them depending on who we are, our awareness, what we're here to do.
Do you see yours? Obviously.
I do, and I do see when people are working with me, I see theirs as well. I
Oh,
see their spirit guides. Often during meditation, they'll come in, or we'll call them in. Galactic beings that are also part of your divine team will come in. So, yes, that's what I say. I believe we all have them. We may not all be aware of them, or we may not all be working with them or have a relationship with them, but we all have them.
thank you. I could talk to you forever and for a couple more hours at least easily. And but I want to respect your time, so I appreciate you coming on. Maybe you can share with us your links and website if you don't mind, so people
Yes,
can find you.
current website is 360prosperity.com. That's actually setting up a different website soon in a couple of months. But right now it's 360prosperity.com. And you can find me also on Facebook, 360 Prosperity or Maria Martinez. You can find me on YouTube, Maria Martinez or 360 Prosperity. Also on Instagram, 360 Prosperity, and TikTok, Maria Martinez, 360 Prosperity.
Thank you. I'm gonna end it with the Tara Brach quote. And she says, "Perhaps the biggest tragedy of our lives is that freedom is possible, yet we can pass our years trapped in the same old patterns." I just want to say thank you for helping us become more aware and break those patterns. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. And I love all the quotes that you shared, by the way.
Well,
Amazing.
thank you. I appreciate it. Well, take care. Namaste.
Thank you. You too. Namaste.
Just know we out here. Know we out here working in a major way. Had to speak on it just to make a play. Any given subject, know we make a way. Time to level up on the day-to-day. Know we out here working for the greater good. Expand your mind, broaden your lens the way you should. From the stars to the galaxy to speak on spirituality. Higher understanding for the neighborhood.